But I think that with the beginning of the new year, New Year's resolutions here on Mysteries of the Mind, it's all about spending 60 minutes with you. It's about digging into your mind. And I've got a little bit of an echo there, so it sounds pretty crazy. Hold on here. I should have predicted that with tonight's show. Tonight's show, we're doing the power of the mind and body, the Jedi mind trick. Let's see. I'm wondering if my producer can hear that. We've got a little bit of an echo. I'm wondering if it's just me. Oh, okay. It's just me, people. So what I might do is... Man, that's kind of distracting. I just hear myself in the microphone. Not that I don't like the sound of my own voice. Oh, and there it's gone. How about that? And it's gone. Okay, wonderful. So tonight's topic is It's All in Your Head, the power of the mind and body, or as my husband likes to call it, the Jedi mind trick. And so as we sit here tonight, these 45 minutes is what ends up being with the halftime or the break. We really get an opportunity to delve into your mind. And here on the show, we talk about psychology. We talk about a lot of forensic psychology. And I utilize a lot of my cognitive techniques that I use in therapy, either as life coaching or working in forensic psychology, in interviews, assessments, and interrogations. And my favorite tool, of course, is neuro-linguistic programming. And one of the most important things that I love to do with clients is just break down language. Language is so absolutely important to how we function, how we behave, how we process our thoughts, how we create the cognitive pathways in our mind. And so even though tonight's topic of perception, prediction, and power of the mind might seem like we could just say it in one sentence right there, it's actually a little bit more complex. And I find it terribly fascinating. And I hope that you're joining me live in the chat room or joining me online, either at Facebook or Twitter. If you're on Twitter, we kind of stream live throughout the shows, any questions that you have. Or you can always email me directly through sarahsoderlin.com or theparanormalsarah@gmail. But I'm interested in your feedback on perception and how tonight's show maybe changes or doesn't change your perceptions of how we think, how we process. And I thought this was perfect for the new year because this is, of course, that time of year that everybody is doing their New Year's resolutions. Everyone is setting in place their goals. People are doing predictions. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Who's going to make it to the playoffs? Who's going to be, traded? Or are we going to keep Alex Gordon? Or, am I going to win the Powerball? Please, Lord, let's win the Powerball. We're making predictions for ourselves. We're making resolutions, short-term, long-term goals. We're filling our mind and our daily life with hope. And hopefully, we are reinforcing those hopes with behaviors. That's a big part of it, right? It's more than just talk. You got to walk the walk. But what does that mean when we reverse it and we take it back to the seed of thought? And we're going to start with perception. So when I'm asking you right there, you listening to me tonight, to take a deep breath and get comfortable wherever you're at, we're going to go into your mind. And whether you're a visual person or you're an audio person or you're a kinesthetic person, I want you to really get comfortable with where you're at and really get comfortable with the idea that just in these next few minutes, we are going to explore your definitions. We're going to explore your language. So with your permission, of course, we are going to just ask your definition of perception. When you go into your little computer hard drive there in your mind and you right click and you go to computer and you double click and you go to language and you double click and you go to words and phrases and you double click, these of course are folders already there, made for you. You can't change them or delete them. You can only look at them. But looking at them really allows you to explore your mind. And you right-click on words and phrases and you open that up and you look down. Maybe it's in alphabetical order. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're organized by date, sorted by the day they were modified in your brain. But you find perception. You find perception and you look at that definition. What is the definition in your head? What does it say? Well, I'm going to give you the Webster's Dictionary definition. The definition that is kind of that universal, we should all be on the same page definition. Maybe the Microsoft Word definition that's there. The ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses. Perception is the ability to see, hear, or become aware of something through the senses, normal limits to the human perception. So some of the synonyms for perception in today's language could be recognition, realization, awareness, knowledge, understanding, knowing, comprehending, cognizant of. But most all perception involves signals within our nervous system, right? Stimulus, which can result from physical or chemical stimulation, it triggers a sense organ and creates a perception in our mind. The ability to see, hear, or become aware of something. Oh, there it is. I perceive it. Now, I want you to think about that because perception is not just this passive conclusion of signals. A train hits you, a train just hit me, or I hear the word baseball, I perceive baseball. They're not just signals. It's not just stimulus. It's not just a cause and effect, but instead there's this really complicated process happening in our mind that's mostly shaped by a learning process, by our memory, by our expectation, and even our attention. So think about those words. Our perception is mostly shaped by the learning, the memory, the expectation, and attention of an individual. Those are all pretty subjective, right? Your learning process is very different than mine. How I learned to ride a bike is different than you. My memory recall, how I store memories, my expectations, whether they're positive or negative, past, present, future, my attention, not just attention span, but what I focus on, They're all very subjective. They're all very individualized. It's very you. So how does your learning, your memory, your expectation and attention affect your perception? Well, obviously, with perception, there are the basics. There's our eyes, how light hits our eyes and goes through our retinas and pupils and rods and cones and refraction and reflection and all this stuff. But then we kind of later learn, right, through learning and through expectation, about gestalt, about how our brain organizes information. We learn about illusions. We learn about depth perception. We learn about shadows. We learn about pareidolia. We don't just look up at the sky and say, oh, that looks like a rabbit. It is a rabbit. There's a process there that we say that cloud looks like a rabbit. We have an idea of what a rabbit looks like, but we know that it's a cloud. And then we watch the wind pass and the form dissipates and whatever it is that we may have thought of is past. Maybe the person riding next to me in the car didn't see that at all. Our perceptions are different. Hearing. Man, just last week we had the amazing honor to welcome Mr. Michael Esposito, and he gave us just an introduction into frequency. We talked a lot about infrasounds, the sounds that are just below the range of human hearing, but that some people hear. Talking about the Doppler effect, learning as children through school or maybe through just, maybe your dad shows you an ambulance going by on the road and you learn that something gets louder as it gets closer to you. How your ears process the stimulus of energy or wavelengths, frequencies. It hits the eardrum, goes through the cochlea. It's going through all these anatomical structures in our brain. It finally gets to our brain, the organ, and it's processed. And then we perceive it. And then we think about that perception. And we think about, man, I really love the song Black Hole Sun. It reminds me of the days when I would sit with my sister and we would be turning the parental controls off the old television before Dad got home, and we'd actually be watching MTV when it was 10 to the hour every hour and it was nothing but music videos. And I loved watching Soundgarden. Their videos were freaky, freaky, freaky. And I loved that one. My dad would never let me watch that if he knew it was on TV. And then if we heard his tires on the gravel driveway coming up, we'd quickly set the parental controls back, turn the TV off, and get back to doing chores. It's a little rebellious. It's a little naughty. And I loved when I turned 16 and I could turn on that song and drive down the road with the windows down. I might be hearing the same song as someone else that it makes their skin crawl. It's a large part of perception. But an even more complicated concept of perception, I want to give you an example here, are the perceptions and how they change our realities as well. So kind of going back to the New Year resolutions, right? We want to lose weight, we want to get this, we want to get more money, financial freedom, save this, save that, minimize our closet, whatever it is that our goals are. How can we change that? Well, we've thought about it, we've written it down, we've visualized it. But what's really going on there? So in psychology, a lot of experimental psychology, a lot of in the 60s and 70s, psychology was doing some really cool stuff with perception and pain threshold and, coming up with the little smiley face things that you do in the emergency room. How much pain are you in? But they also had the opportunity to visit school children all across America. I can't tell you exactly how big the sample was. Have a link to the study if you're interested. Just email me. And these school children were told to, at the beginning, we're here because we're scientists and we're surveying the correlation between your backpacks and the weight of those backpacks and how back problems and back pain are becoming an issue with young children. And we think that there's a correlation there, and we're going to be doing some tests, and we'd like to ask you some questions about the weight of your backpack and how much pain it puts you in. And what they found is that even school children were influenced by their own perceptions in such a way that it did not matter how heavy the backpack was, whether it was 1 pound or 11 pounds. If the child thought it was heavy, whether they were told, wow, that sure is a heavy backpack, or they just maybe were coming up with a reason for their back pain that maybe had another cause. So many little things in that study. If they thought it was heavy, they had more pain. It didn't actually matter how heavy it was. So then we start talking like matrix stuff, right? Reality. Is this a chair? Or is this just your brain telling you that it's a chair? What is real? Well, what we have learned, and if those of you listening, man, some cool stuff in quantum mechanics this week also, by the way, with the double slit experiment. We'll get to that later. Real has a lot to do with your perception. That subjective learning, memory, expectation, and attention. So here comes the philosopher, and he says, yes, what is true? Epistemology, right? What do we know, feel, and think to be true or real? And we kind of have to know, again, right-click and check the page info on real and true for you personally. What is real? What is true? Well, in philosophy, we talk about crossing the bridge. How many times do you have to cross the bridge safely to know that the bridge is safe to walk across? You see the bridge, you walk across the bridge every day. The first time you're a little hesitant. It's something new. It's new sensory input. It's new stimulus. You have no learning, memory, expectation, or attention to this bridge. But then you walk across it and it's safe. You step on the little boards there. There's no creaking. There's no wobbling. It looks safe. It feels safe. It is safe. You get across. The next day, the same bridge. You have expectations. You have some learning and memory there. You walk across the bridge. Predicting the bridge to be safe. Storing the information unconsciously. Building truths based on experience. But then what has to happen for that expectation to be broken? For a truth to change? For reality to be different? In some cases, it does not take much. In most cases, our conscious and unconscious mind goes throughout life in a pretty routine, similar way. Milk is milk, cheese is cheese, job is job, car is car, spouse is spouse. Things are changing, but our predictions, our learning, our memory, our expectations of things, we're storing into our mind. Very subjective minds, and we're building our truths. So the components of perception, there are psychologists all over the place. Bruner, Sachs, Johns, many psychologists. Jerome Bruner, I particularly am fond of for perception. He's kind of developed this model of perception. So when you're double-clicking on the word perception in your mind and you're like, okay, perception is my senses. It's how I perceive something to be true. Eyes, ears, tasting, right? To the normal senses. We're not talking supernatural perception. We're just talking basic perception. And now we know that it's not just stimulus. It's not just our senses. It has a lot to do with us, how we store and learn and memorize things and our attention and our expectations. Well, according to Jerome Bruner, people go through the following process to form an opinion. He kind of uses opinion synonymously with prediction or perception. So you're encountering an unfamiliar target and you're kind of open to different informational cues. You want to learn more about this target. Something new's come along, a new bridge to cross. So, of course, the first thing you do is you are curious. But you pull on learned information, memory, recall, on things that are similar. Schemas, if you will. How have I organized this in my mind? What is this thing? What is this new food? What is this new sound? What is this new stimulus that we've encountered? And the second step, you try and collect more information, right? So you're touching it, you're sniffing it, you're tasting it, you're asking about it, you're categorizing the target unconsciously already at this point. You have a learning process. You already have a learning process. How do you learn more about things when you encounter something new? Well, usually in this stage, most of us are a little less open. We're less selective. We increase our attention, right? We search for cues. We are searching for things to conform and validate the way we're already categorizing something. If it's a person, oh my gosh, she's blonde, she's short, she's young, she's a whore. Or this person, maybe in, like right now in the Black Lives Matter movement, you have a Caucasian police officer who's short with a little Napoleon disorder, and he comes up to a Black American wearing his pants around his knees, and we're categorizing. We don't know this cop, we don't know this person, we don't even really know what's going on. But we start to pull on our own information and actively ignore, even distort cues that will violate perceptions that other people have. Isn't that interesting? We will distort reality to fit our perception and categorization. So when we talk about discrimination, stereotypes, changing the way people think, well, perception is a big part of that. And our perception becomes much more selective as we finally go through the process and add consistency. Consistency is so important to experience. Motivations and expectations are extremely important. I know I'm repeating the word expectation synonymously with perception because those two fit quite well together. When you perceive something, you're taking in the stimulus, and your cognitive process is going to utilize what you expect to happen. And that's based on memory, learning, right? You have this connotation, this recall that's already playing a huge role in what you expect to happen. And this affects yourself, it affects the others around you, it affects who you communicate with on a daily basis. Other psychological and sociological concepts at play that we group ourselves with like minds, we like to click naturally, we do discrimination bias, we are very selective with what makes us comfortable, we choose things much like ourselves, there's already a natural narcissistic stuff going on there, and we start to distort reality. I mean, face it takes an awful long time to look at people, places, and things in a completely new way, new eyes, without stored information. It's almost impossible. It creates conflict and stress, good stress and bad stress, creates stress in the mind. And our conscious and unconscious mind are always trying to deal with stress. If you don't need it, don't do it. Avoid it. Unless, of course, you've got other stuff going on. But consistency. So now I want to jump to, we're already almost halfway through the show. Shame on me. Okay. So I want to jump through, we've kind of looked at perception in your mind. What are your perceptions? How do you learn? How do you store those? How does your memory change and distort the reality or the truths in your life? But now let's kind of further apply that to New Year's resolutions with self-fulfilling prophecies. I want you to maybe look around in your brain there, feel around. What is a self-fulfilling prophecy? A self-fulfilling prophecy is a prediction. False belief promoting negative outcomes? No. A self-fulfilling prophecy is a prediction that directly or indirectly causes itself to become true by the terms of the prophecy itself, due to positive feedback between belief and behavior. Belief and behavior. Those things are cyclical with one another. And expectation is key in perception. Expectation is key in the self-fulfilling prophecy. This happens a lot. I'm going to give you an example. We talk about a false belief promoting a negative outcome. Age discrimination. Maybe you have a freshman football team. You have a guy that's far too young to be put on varsity because we're assuming assumptions. We all know what those do. Or we have an expectation that he simply does not have the ability, the physique, the wisdom, the knowledge, whatever word you want to use for that perception of this person to do a good job. Or we wake up and we say to ourselves, man, I have a feeling today is going to be a bad day. We expect today is going to be a bad day. This self-fulfilling prophecy or false belief, remember, it's not a bad day yet. But you've already thought this. Maybe you've even verbalized it. You spill your coffee. It's got a bad day again. Right? You go through the whole thing. Fill my coffee, broke my shoelace. I mean, you're like a fuel song. It's a bad day. And you've expected it. I see this a lot with spousal treatment of each other. Expectation. You expect this person to cheat on you. You expect this person to trust. You expect this person to misbehave if they go to a strip club. Right? And a self-fulfilling prophecy is kind of interesting. When you expect it, usually happens, right? Well, it's not always about negative outcomes either. Self-fulfilling prophecies can absolutely, just as accurately, be for positive beliefs and positive outcomes. For example, in neurolinguistic programming, we see this a lot kind of unconsciously as well with gender roles and the laws of attraction. When a young woman feels as though, believes as though she is just on fire, she's got her best dress on. She maybe doesn't feel so great today, but you know what? She's got her favorite shoes on. She did her hair today. She's got her nails done. She feels good. She believes that she is the hottest thing in the room. Her walk changes. She exudes a confidence that she feels attractive. She believes she's attractive. Almost always, in psychological experiments, that's the person that is defined as most attractive in the room. You go into that job interview and you believe you've got it. Confidence. I mean, you hear that a lot as a cliche, but it really comes back to the self-fulfilling prophecy, which even further pulls back into perception of self, which even further pulls back into stimulus of truth and reality and expectation. Expectation is key. So the self-fulfilling prophecy is this tool, right? We've got our Batman tool belt. When we're double-clicking, right-clicking over into the computer, over into perception, and we double-click, we can start adding things in there. Tools of the trade really start building that program, building a part of our mind. And the self-fulfilling prophecy is very cyclical, both positive and negative. You think of the self-fulfilling prophecy, so your action towards others impacts their beliefs, which dictates their actions, which then reinforces our beliefs about ourselves, and in turn is influencing our actions towards others, which brings you back to the beginning of the cycle. It's kind of cool. And in neurolinguistic programming, this is used all the time in language, not only in how I feel about myself, how I feel and expect the present and future to go, but also how I'm going to talk to you, being in the state of mind. What we're going to do now, it's halfway through the show, so we are going to cut through a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Pygmalion effect, predictions, the placebo effect, and so much more to hopefully get you in the right mind for the new year, here on Mysteries of the Mind. And welcome back, everybody, to Mysteries of the Mind. I truly hope you're enjoying the music here on the show throughout the year. I'll definitely be playing more and more of the music that we do here in our home studio in my house, and that is Brandon Soderland. He's my husband, and that was actually the song he made me for our wedding. So I hope you love it. I hope you enjoy it. We've got some more for you before and after the show, and you can always check out more on social media. Check me out there at sarahsoderland.com and pick your favorite social site, and we can interact with one another. But here on Mysteries of the Mind tonight, we are talking about perception. We're talking about your mind. And I hope that you will get back into your safe spot, get back into that comfortable place, take a deep breath. We've got a few more minutes here to spend with you, and to explore your mind and perception, and maybe, just maybe, take some of those New Year's resolutions that you've made, which, by the way, what were they? What were your New Year's resolutions or goals or hopes? Mine was to get super healthy. Not just healthy, but super healthy. And of course, I have to add in there, for those of you looking to get thin rather than lose weight, our brain does not process negatives. The word lose is negative. Oftentimes that makes things very difficult. Just a little hypnosis tip there for you. Say, I'm getting healthy. I'm going to get healthy this year. I'm going to get hot. Super hot. Whatever you have to do. Make it funny. Make it smile. Make it stick. Because positive beliefs are ones that make us feel better as well. They're positive in almost every way. The stimulus is, it sounds good. It feels good. It tastes good. That's why sometimes addictions are so difficult to get rid of. We associate them with, for example, if you're trying to quit smoking. Quit, by the way, has a negative connotation. So smoke less. I'm trying to smoke less. Or I'm trying to, no longer be a smoker, in a sense that I'm going to be replacing smoking with something else. So shifting, or whatever word. The word usage is really important to each person, how they decide to do it. But you obviously want to have replacement behaviors, but you have to realize that some of those things make us feel good. It's really hard not to eat chocolate cake because I love it. You think of holidays, you think of feeling good, you think of satiation, the chocolate and the chemical releases and the oxytocin, man, I just love it. It's hard to quit something you love. And our brain and our perception of things also, sometimes I do this a lot with food, making the wrong choices that aren't going to support my getting healthy. Because like I had mentioned in the first half, I distort the reality to fit my belief system. That greasy, delicious tacos full of sour cream and cheese and meat are healthy options. When I'm saying, look, there's lettuce and there's tomatoes and there's avocados, I could be eating something much worse. And I distort the reality to that present moment. And I just eat everything because it tastes delicious and I love it. And my behaviors, they're really mirroring my unconscious love for that food. Even though I'm consciously saying, yeah, these are healthy. I know better. Deep down, you know better. So we have this self-fulfilling prophecy. What we know to be true is often true, and what we believe to be true, we say is true. And what we say is true becomes the truth, because we behave as such. Now, we take this one step into some cool stuff. I love neurolinguistic programming, the Jedi mind trick. These are not the droids you're looking for. Right? And I waved my hand over you just then. The Pygmalion effect. I remember it as the Rosenthal theory. It's done in 1968. But anyway, it's now apparently called the Pygmalion effect. But it's kind of interesting. I spent all day talking about this with my husband. It's kind of fascinating. Think about this. So to make a person act in a certain way, all you have to do is believe this when you interact with them. You make eye contact, you believe something about a person, and you unconsciously persuade others, your target person, of their desired attributes. This was kind of interesting. What Rosenthal did originally was he went to schools all over the country and said to a group of students at the beginning of the year, "Man," he looked them straight in the eye, "I am really impressed. It has come to my attention that 6, maybe 7 of you in this classroom right here before me today are exceptional. Your test scores, your assessments would suggest you are far ahead of your peers. You deserve to be jumped up a grade or 2. Exceptional things are going to be happening from you, and I know throughout the semester we're going to further determine who it is in this room, I can't say for privacy reasons, is absolutely the cream of the crop. I can't wait for your peers to see who you are. Keep up the great work." And the students, no different teachers, no different workbooks, no different modalities of teaching, performed exceptionally well. All the students outperformed themselves from previous years and previous test results. This positive belief put into a self-fulfilling prophecy, put into the language, and according to Rosenthal, the Pygmalion effect, acting and speaking based on a belief to a person when interacting with them persuades the target to have those attributes. Now, parameters could be based on intellectual capacity or awareness, because think of this. If you're a Jedi to a Jedi, and the Jedi is raising his hand saying, "These are not the droids you're looking for," and the other Jedi says, "Yeah, I know that trick." You may or may not be susceptible to this neurolinguistic power, mind influence over behavior. But think about children. Think about people who are unaware, distracted. Those who are easily susceptible because they're just not paying attention or expecting or believing you to be going into the interaction with this upper hand. Now, I know that my producer, Mr. Rockistucci, has some amazing radio shows where they're talking about behavioral analytics. Now, of course, this is something that I do a lot in forensic psychology. Understanding the behavior, the influence of behavior. When you're watching TV, you're sitting back, you're kicking back, you're home from work, you got your Doritos, you're not really paying attention. You're very susceptible. When you're out grocery shopping and your kids are screaming and you're trying to get in and out and you're thinking about your wallet and you're trying to pay attention to your budget, you are distracted. You're very susceptible. When you're driving, you're doing the routine drive that most of us are doing because most of us on the road are going from the same place to the same time, the same day. On our routine, we've got our radio station on and we're jamming to the music. We're in a hypnagogic state. We are very susceptible. Advertising takes advantage of this. They use neurolinguistics. They use the power of language to persuade. We know this when we sit back and rationally think about it. And we go, yeah, I know. When someone says, listen, do you understand that McDonald's uses the yellow sign to have you yield, to take note of, that their drive-through signs are red, encouraging you to stop? Do you realize that Target the word Target, the brand name, the shapes of their logos, their mottos, their jingles. Chicken parm, you taste so good. That Peyton Manning took that so that you'd be thinking of him also while nationwide has you thinking of football, has you thinking of something you enjoy, that maybe their product is something that you really like. Because obviously you're watching football when you hear that jingle with those advertisements with Peyton Manning in them. Fusion centers everywhere are very aware of the powers of mind influence, of perception, of what we see, of what we hear, of what we taste and feel, how we learn, how we store memory, how we recall memory, how we influence things based on connotation, how we build belief systems, and how those become routine behaviors. It's a really, really easy mathematical equation. A plus B equals C. A plus B equals C. And as a psychologist, you're thinking, yeah, but I don't, we already talked about that perception is so individualized. How do we know, that this person is a visual learner? We don't have to. We put the visual cues on the commercials for television. We let people corral themselves into the cliques and categories that they will. We allow the information that we're gathering from people to go ahead and tell us what kind they are. We know A now. B, we know that B is going to do this to equal C. So you insert B when you know A, and you get C. That's why there's so much emphasis on understanding you, gathering your information, gathering your genetics, gathering your hereditary. Get Ancestry.com today. It's free. Give us your blood. We want to know. It all comes down to knowing who you are. And this power of persuasion to influence behavior, language, is a huge, huge part of it. When you talk down to someone, God, you're worthless, it immediately can affect that person. If they are not mindfully shielding and guarding and saying, I'm not worthless. This is their opinion of me. This is the language they're using to try and abuse me, and I'm not going to let it happen. I mean, come on. Even unconsciously, when we abuse ourselves or others, we're doing it when we instinctively know that person is susceptible or vulnerable. You do it because it's likely that that person is unaware. It's likely that that person is distracted. And that's what makes it efficient. You can't hate on that. You have to be in awe of it. But what's exciting is that you take the power and you add it to your Batman utility belt. And you say, I understand how language absolutely infiltrates the minds of people and how it can influence behavior. You might think that your child, for example, I'll use myself. I might think that my 3-year-old is absolutely out of control and emotionally having a meltdown tantrum. And I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. I don't say to my child, you're being ridiculous. I say and believe what I want to happen. Stellan, I need you to focus. Focus with me. Let's focus together. Let's get calm together. I'm going to breathe with you. This is getting him on my level. All right? Meet me halfway. Come on. You can do this. Encouraging. I'm here for you. I'm supporting you in this process. I don't necessarily love the behavior that you have right now, but I understand why you're upset. We acknowledge and we move past. I forgive you for this tantrum. Now tell me what it's about. Explain it to me. You give them the power. I know he's only 3. You would think that this is ridiculous. But it ceases the tantrum almost immediately, and the child huffingly through crying breaths goes, I wanted the train. I wanted the train. And you say, okay, let's go get the train. And there's happiness. And I say, gosh, you did great just then. Did you see that? Man, that was amazing. What 3-year-old can work through a tantrum like that? You're awesome. And it's a positive experience for everybody. It didn't mean that for a moment I thought he was being ridiculous. But I created a belief system that I wanted to be true. I utilized my language, my eye contact, and my behavior to infiltrate and influence a desired behavior in the person that was my target. And then you reinforce it. And that's how we do conditioning. It's very, very easy. For those of you watching Making a Murderer right now, just the title itself gives you an idea of how authorities work. It should not be a surprise. If it is, then you've been distracted. Don't be distracted anymore. Stop it. Let 2016 be the year that you're not distracted, that you're aware. And so with that, I bring you predictions using the tools of perception, of intuition, knowledge, wisdom, reality, rational thought, logical thinking, lateral thinking. Man, all of these things we can add to predictions. Now, I think sometimes when you hear the word prediction, because I want you to define it, take a second, look at that word in your head, listen to me say prediction, and tell me what comes to mind. What's the definition of prediction? For some people, it might be Mrs. Cleo, predicting your future. Maybe it's a big hefty psychic with a crystal ball. Maybe it pertains to some supernatural power. Predictions. Right? Well, I want you to, if you're a moviegoer like myself, maybe you've had the opportunity to see Limitless. I love that movie, by the way. Bradley Cooper taking a special mind pill. And there's a moment in the very end of the movie, I'm not spoiling anything for you, of course, but this pill allows him to have extensive perception, advanced perception. It's not supernatural. It's using the mind, having these tools, which are all accessible to us, mind you, to say, that van is going to crash right up there. And he points, and 4 seconds later, the van crashes. Or in the Mothman prophecy, where he says, an ambulance going down the road. The guy on the sidewalk hears it and sees it drive on by. The window washer on level 52 of that skyscraper he's entering hears it as well, sees it go on by. But he sees it go on down the road and turn left and then turn right, and sees that the accident's way up ahead. The guy walking in takes the elevator on up. 2 men just both heard and saw the same ambulance, but one of them knows a little bit more about the situation. It does not mean that one is psychic. It does not mean that one has superhuman powers. Perception was a little different. Or in the Matrix. Don't worry about that vase. What vase? Crash. Really going to blow your mind is had it broken if I didn't mention anything. Expectation. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Prediction. Predictions are a forecast, a statement about an uncertain event at that present moment, often not always, that you make based upon experience or knowledge. That you're making based upon your perception. This person's perception over here might be a little distracted. Your perception over here might be a little bit more knowledgeable. You have 2 people sitting at the same table, both asked to predict who's going to win the Super Bowl. One of them just so happens to be a amazing fantasy football player. He knows every team, every person. So-and-so just got injured. This person's on the bench. This person's going to have this happen. who's playing who, that Minnesota is going to be playing the Seattle Seahawks. And yes, we know that it's not necessarily going to be a good thing for the Vikings because the Seahawks are a much better team, but the weather is going to be like -10, and it's at the TCF Bank Stadium because our stadium is under construction. Person B has no idea. They're not a football fan. Ask them about PGA golf, it's a totally different story. They're going to make a prediction. Is one of them more psychic than the other? No. One of them might have a little bit more knowledge than the other, which of course vastly influences the outcome, the likelihood, the reality. So you're telling me if I learn about something, I can make more valuable predictions. That's absolutely true. And it might seem like a vague thing, but if you're applying it to getting healthy, of course, when you're getting healthy, you learn about your diet, you learn about exercise, you try and learn about your own body. Okay, do I have this? Do I have a thyroid problem? Am I on any medications that cause weight gain? You start to learn about metformin, you start to learn about this, you start to learn about, oh gosh, the cheese I've been eating that's low fat is actually causing me to gain weight. You learn about hormones, you learn about metabolism. You can make a better prediction to your outcome to meet your goal. And the knowledge that you acquire increases your perception, which gives you a much better Batman utility belt for making more aware decisions, less susceptible to influential powers. You can stay focused on you. You can stay focused on your goals. You can stay focused on changing belief systems within your mind, knowledge within your mind, learning, and therefore increasing the likelihood that your prediction will come true. This is absolutely applicable to the self, but also to others. An interesting psychological experiment I want to point out. Expectations. A prediction, right? Higher expectations for risk-taking, deviant, rebellious behaviors. So a group of high schoolers. A psychologist goes to a high school, and it's a bunch of freshmen. And he says, okay, everybody, this is going to be anonymous. Your parents aren't going to know. I want you to fill out this questionnaire on drinking and drug use. Let us know. And the parents are pulled aside and said, okay, we'd like for you to predict your child's behavior this year. It's first year of high school. What do you think about their drinking and drug use? A year goes by, the same students come back, they fill out their questionnaire of their drinking and drug use, and they look at the results, and almost 100% of the parents who expected risk-taking behavior had children, teens, who engaged in risk-taking behavior. It was called the self-fulfilling prophecies, the synergistic accumulative effect of parent belief on children drinking behavior, done in 2004. And the American Psychological Society has continued experiments on the self-fulfilling prophecies. And almost always, it happens to come to fruition. So think about that. It's just the parents believing something. But what do you think? Is it likely that those parents are using language at home, influencing, encouraging, or deterring? They're putting things into action. So here in these last few minutes, of course, we can always get to this on a future show, but think about the placebo effect. A remarkable phenomenon in which a placebo or fake treatment can give you a positive result based on expectation that it will. Positive effects, expectations. This all breaks down into visualization. Creating the belief system in your mind. I know it can be very difficult to do. Changing a belief system causes stress. It can cause conflict. You have to actually work at changing a belief system in your mind. Just as it takes effort to get up every morning and go jogging, and you hate to do it, but you do it because you want to look good or you want to be healthy. just as much as it stinks to choose the spinach salad over the chocolate cake, there's conflict, there's stress, but you do it. These little decisions that you make every day, it takes just as much work to mentally do the work to change a belief system. But I encourage you this year, visualize those simple, silly, cliche, fluffy frou-frou steps of taking the time to cut out pictures on a magazine and paste it on your mirror in the morning. To every morning while you're brushing your teeth or going to the toilet or doing whatever it is that you do, associate an action, wiping your butt. I don't care. I'm wiping crap off my butt. I'm going to wipe crap out of my life. And say it every day. If you visualize and see something, if you say something and hear something, you begin to chip away at the iceberg of a belief system in your head. And the things that you're saying, doing, and seeing, whether they're positive or negative, are absolutely influencing the person that you are. You are the greatest power influencing yourself. Use affirmations, predictions, and expectations, self-fulfilling prophecies, placebo effects, whatever word you want to use. I encourage you to increase your perception this year. Be aware. Be aware of the world around you. Be aware of who you're voting for. Be aware of who you're listening to. Be aware of what music you take in, what advertisements you leave on the television. Be aware. It's the absolute best thing you can do for yourself and anybody else in your life and indirectly to me, so I care. Anyway, next week we're going to be taking on a pretty courageous concept of the power of mind in the engagement of war. And what does it mean today to go to war? The psychology of war, and talking about all things a little sneaky, kind of based on North Korea, H-bombs, atom bombs, all sorts of craziness going on in the world today. But I hope you will join me on social media. I hope you'll join me on Facebook and Twitter. I hope you'll send me an email and give me some feedback. And most of all, I hope you'll join me next week here every Thursday at 7 p.m. Central on Mysteries of the Mind.
There, my lover girl, stay with me a while. Why can't you see that I am yours? While we talk, we can think about all the world we've seen, how it seems so real. And I feel that everyone around me has something they would like to say, and I feel everything around me is drying out, and all it needs is one love rain. Tired of believing in what's good, when nothing really hurts us anymore. You're always saying you're up in arms over the sun-just world, and all you've seen is make-believe concern. And I feel that everyone around me something they would like to say, and I feel that everything around me is drying out, and all it needs is one long rain. walking and let it all just be. As long as there's no change for you and me. As I feel that everyone around me has something they would like to say.